concerns with one particular merchant, and there was, so it was safer for them to go through the DBAs and the DBA apply for that permit and not an individual business. So you can't please everybody all the time, but the DBA has had no negative feedback from any of the merchants. And so I just wanted to make that clear, that everything was approved by the DBA prior to the road closure, and they were quite happy to participate. So they will be participating at a bigger capacity last year, but everybody's busy inside running their own business. And I went into pretty much all of the businesses up and down the street, and a lot of them were very busy. So that's all I have to say.
Councillor Butler, I believe is next.
Sure. Thanks. I just had one question for Councillor Thompson on her report. With the Chamber of Commerce going down to 3 directors for a quorum at the meeting, was that a decision that was made by the board or the membership as a whole?
That was made by the membership as a whole at their general meeting in February.
Okay, because I was, through the mayor, asked by a couple of business owners why they weren't notified of that meeting. There wasn't a general email sent out to the membership.
My understanding is that they did send out their...
Okay, then they need to review their list of members, because I know 2 members that did not receive that email.
Can you tell me the members so I can pass that on to our ED?
They've asked to do that in private. I don't want to do that publicly because it's a business situation. But I can let you know after the meeting. Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Associate members wouldn't be invited because they don't vote.
To
But
the-
business
to the
members,
general meeting.
yeah.
Well, we'll have to look
Sure.
into that.
Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hammett, for your comments. I was approached personally by one of the business members down in the downtown business area. That business owner had been to 10 other businesses and had received complaints. And so I felt it was important to bring this forward, not to slam anyone, not to make anyone look bad, but to address a situation that several, at least 10 businesses in the downtown business area have issues with. I think that it would be a very good idea, as I stated in my report. We can always look at improvements. I think that would be a good idea for the DBA to do a study on behalf of its members. And even Councillor Krog mentioned that there would be creative ways to include businesses and maybe bring more traffic into their actual business locations, because, as I said, many of them did not get the kind of traffic that they wanted, and they felt that they really did lose, like I said, up to $10,000 on that weekend. So I would like to ask that the DBA do a study on behalf of their members, which I understand are all the businesses in that area, and that we could get a report back to council from you on that.
You allow Councillor
Oh,
Hammett to
absolutely.
rebut, but I don't want this to start.
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
debate.
I just want to suggest that after this meeting and outside of the meeting here, would you provide me with a list of those 10 businesses that I can take back to the DBA, to the board?
I can do that.
Because that would be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
There has not been no negative feedback, only positive feedback from the members.
What,
And 10 is an awful lot,
yeah,
considering
that's-
you're talking about Market Avenue, and most of those had exceptional days.
what I will have to do is I will have to check with the business owner who gave me the list, and I'm sure that business owner would be very happy to clear it. Once they have, I would absolutely be happy to provide you with that.
Because we can't verify that until we see,
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah,
verify
sure.
that.
If I may just weigh in on this, my concern here is, why are we having this occurring with a councillor and a liaison to the DBA? Why did these business owners not go directly to the DBA
We,
and express their
Can I-
concerns?
Can I answer that?
we have relationships with people. You walk into a store and people begin to talk to you and they ask if they can, share something with you. This is what's going on. That's what happened.
Well, if
We're-
we
we're
were elected on
representatives to
a
this- to the
format of
city.
transparency, I think that should depict also by the business owners that there should be a transparency on their part to come forward, not to have this behind closed doors or cloak and dagger type of representation
That's why
where
I said I
they
would.
have to go through.
Yeah.
I understand that you're gonna be talking to the liaison, but I'm saying, I don't think that's a proper format, because councillors have their other duties to do, and I don't think we should get involved with businesses in that type of a format, because city business is not really our business for the downtown merchants. That should be handled, that's why we have a DBA and a chamber.
If I may, Council, Mayor Conrad, we are all on council, walking around, talking with people. They expect us to be coming to the council chambers with their issues, with their concerns. I am bringing this forward. I think it's a good thing that I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to slam anyone. I'm not
No,
trying
no,
to say.
I fully understand that,
I'm
that's not
trying
the issue
to,
that
so
I'm
that we
coming
can
on.
make Family Day a better event for everyone in the community and address the concerns. I would have thought that this would be something that the DBA would have been happy to hear.
It would if
That-
the
that
person
they
would come
can-
directly to
that-
them.
But it would, you see, but the concern I have, I'm not at all putting a negative impact on your concerns. Always there could be room for improvement, I agree. But what I'm getting at is, if the businesses have concerns, they shouldn't be then necessarily addressing it with one counselor. They should come to either all of council or go to their format, which is the DBA or the chamber. That's all I'm saying. That they cannot come to you or to the rest of council, absolutely. But first and foremost, if it's a business concern, it should be addressed by the DBA or the chamber.
Or
That's
recommend that they
Exactly.
forward that information to him.
So anyway, so Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Butler.
Well, my concern about some of this is that it's included in a report. It's not even discussed with the liaison, who could look into it more in depth as you're requesting. And with the list of names that you're going to provide to Councillor Hammett, it'd be interesting to know if they're all members of the DBA,
Everybody downtown is a member of the
regardless
DBA. Yeah.
of whether
Yeah,
they're.
anybody with a business license.
Okay.
Downtown is.
So, yeah, I think that these kinds of comments and things included in a report doesn't reflect good on any of us.
Mm-mm. It was a
And
great
it's-
event.
It's unfortunate. I hear what you're saying, Councillor Tripp, that you think that everything needs to be above board and out in the open, and for the most part, I have to agree. But when there's issues such as this, they can have a negative impact on other businesses. And put down the Downtown Business Association, who are trying so hard on the behalf of their membership to provide interesting and like with the family day, and with what they do for Halloween with their thing. I mean, they do some really marvelous events that for our community and our kids, and I've never heard, and I've been in many of the stores, a complaint about having lost thousands of dollars in business.
Councillor Butler and then Councillor Tripp.
Yeah, I was actually just going to make a similar point as Councillor Thompson. First of all, I want to say I was down there and I thought it was an excellent event. Lots of happy faces, and but yeah, there's going to be differences of opinion. You're never going to please everybody. And from what I understand, the DBA formed an organization and then included everyone by default without getting their permission to be included as by default.
Yes,
So
they did.
it's
They
my
went around and
understanding
spoke
that,
to every
excuse me,
single
I'm
person.
speaking, Councillor Hammett, you're out of order. It's my understanding, and I have spoken with different businesses that don't believe that they want to be part of that organization. So if they're not recognizing the DBA and they're not recognizing themselves as a member, I could see why they wouldn't be bringing forward their concerns to the DBA. So, and also the DBA, when it was first formed, I understand that there were businesses in all of Grand Forks. They wanted to make it a Grand Forks Business Association and then have the chamber oversee the region as a whole, and that was a contentious issue. So there's always growing pains in organizations and different things that have to be worked out, and I definitely think it's fair just to do a survey and to see, to get that feedback and to take it as constructive criticism and build on the event for next year so that they might be able to accommodate those businesses that had concerns.
And that's exactly my reasoning why I made the original statement. Is you can see the amount of time we're wasting in council chambers, and I'm using the word wasting because it's outside of our parameters. We fund this association, but we should not get directly involved in their business. That's my only element here. We are spinning our wheels on an issue that can be resolved externally amongst themselves.
Mhm.
It is not city business per se for that type of thing. Because Jennifer Wetmore and all the volunteers did an excellent job. I was there also. And a lot of work was put into this. And that you're gonna have, again, a few individuals from certain groups that are not quite in accordance with the way things went. You're always gonna have, you're never gonna make everybody happy. You're not gonna please all of the people all the time. But I think in overall scheme of things, it was a great event. It was great again, like it was last year. And any concerns regarding the businesses per se should be addressed on the business level and not be brought to council unless there's some kind of malfunction with the funding or something on that element where the city participates in. Other than that, we basically got to stand back and stand down. Councilor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. I fail to see how bringing the concerns of a number of the residents or of the businesses of the downtown area is a negative thing. I think that we can take this as a positive, turn it into something that is going to make the event a better event for everybody. And I mean, I'm just mystified why why the other members of council here are seeing this as such a negative thing. If we can, when people have differences of opinion, what we want to do is we want to ask them how we can make that a better experience for them. How can we make Family Day a better experience for everyone in this community? And I quite frankly, I don't know why, if businesses are experiencing and expressing some distress, why we would not be jumping to try and find out what it is that we can do for them. This business owner did not feel that they, for whatever reason, that they wanted to connect this issue with the Downtown Business Association leadership. I don't want to get into that. It's none of my business. But when they brought this issue to me, I said that I would bring it forward. My positive outlook on this is, hey, let's do something good for this community. I don't see what is wrong at all with having a survey. A survey can bring out a lot of positive things. Even Councillor Krog contributed a number of very positive suggestions to a survey that the DBA could do. And I've had conversations with other people who have even said perhaps the location of Market Street, there might be a better location. Let's put some collaborative minds together, come up with some better solutions. And instead of just bashing everybody and saying how terrible this is, let's work together and get something positive done. I believe a survey would do that. I don't see why the DBA couldn't take that on and wouldn't be happy to take that on.
Again, though, this should be also addressed to Community Futures because Jennifer Wetmore put a lot of work into organizing.
It's not dissing anyone who put it on. It was a wonderful event.
Yeah.
Councillor Tripp, can you please speak when you're addressed to speak? Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Interesting comment when you said that some of this stuff was none of your business. And I don't think it's council's business to become involved in this. There is a Downtown Business Association. The merchant or merchants who had issue should be dealing directly with the BIA or Downtown Business Association. They shouldn't be coming to council. We don't get involved in the preparation of these events. The only involvement I think that we have is for the road closure, and that certainly doesn't come before council. And I mean, I realize that this is an election year, and perhaps some are
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to
to,
make a point of order. This is
to-
unparliamentary. Point
and,
of unparliamentary procedure, Mr. Mayor.
and therefore, it's
Excuse me, I have-
unfortunate. But
I'd like to
I
be recognized by the
Councillor
chair. It's unacceptable to speak of other councillors this way.
That's absolutely
don't
right.
think I mentioned
You didn't
names.
mention
I
It
said
doesn't
that there was
matter.
an election year.
Yes.
I
Perfectly
believe
That
you
is,
yourself,
that is
Councillor
an
Butler,
inference.
have referred to
The
it
chair
being an
needs to deal
election
with the
year.
point of order.
What is your point of order?
It's unparliamentary to be calling other councillors down for a difference of
Another
opinion and to be
councillor was not-
suggesting that they're campaigning.
Councillor
and
Butler, I
that-
don't recognize
Absolutely.
your point of order because no councillors were mentioned.
I'm
So-
asking for a seconder on my point of
I'll
order.
second it, absolutely.
All those in favor of support of the chair? All against?
Support the chair?
Yep, so. Point of order is disallowed.
It's a tie.
No, it's not,
It's
there's
not.
3.
You can't vote on it.
Yes, you can.
Under Robert's Rules of Order, the chair does
Councillor
not
Butler,
vote
I
to
would
sustain himself.
refrain from challenging the chair any further. If I were
But
you.
at any rate, as much as I have the floor, but these kinds of things I don't think belong in our reports. I think our reports need to be what we have done on behalf of the community as a whole. And, you know, this kind of stuff going in that may be somewhat personal or whatever, I don't think belongs in our reports. I'm interested to know what you did as a counselor on behalf of the city. And if someone complains to you that there are other avenues of dealing with it other than in an open regular meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question, because I had enough of this discussion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right, item 7A. Read that now. Okay. Recommendation is that Mayor Conrad's report on the activities of regional district Kootenai boundary be given verbally at this meeting be received. I don't have a report this week. There was nothing to report on. It was mostly budget items at the regional table. There was no real impact on Grand Forks. For if there's any items that wish to be looked at, it could be found on their website, but there's nothing to report. So there's no need for a mover or seconder because there's no motion. Moving on to 8A, recommendations from staff for decision. Subject matter, highway signage and entryway. From our Deputy Manager of Operations Sustainability, recommendation is the council direct staff to engage the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure in a sign review along Highway 3 within municipal boundaries. May I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Hammond, Councillor Butler. Discussion, Councillor Butler, then Councillor Hammond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, is there a cost for engaging in this study?
To our Deputy Manager. Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that the ministry does at their cost.
Sounds good.
Councillor Hammond.
I'm just confused and I'd just like some clarification. We're calling it wayfinding signage. When we first met last year during the budget process, the entranceway signs, I believe, were called something different. The one like that's at where the expo sign is now, at the entrance on the east end and the west end of town, which has the camping, banking, whatever those symbols, you know, restaurants, food. As you're coming into town, the Wayfarer signage that we also talked about was the actual directional signage, Wayfarer signage in the downtown core that was brought to council during a roundtable and budgeted from the Downtown Business Association, showing which way to the park, which way to the pickleball court, which way to the downtown shopping district, you know, things like that. RV parking. So I just wanted to clarify, Wayfarer signage, are we using the same term for both? Both of the sign projects that we budgeted for last year?
Wayfair or Wayfinding?
Wayfinding signs, yeah,
Never heard
basically the
of
same.
Wayfarers. Yeah, to our Deputy Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is the same project. The original idea was to have the same visual theme for the entranceway signs as well as the smaller signs on the streets. And now with the entranceway signs becoming more of a highways project potentially, the budget would still be there for the smaller signs.
There was two different budgets approved. One, the first one was for 65, and the second one was at 35. There's two different line items. One was called highway signs or entranceway signs. The other one was called Wayfarer signage. And there's two different line items on that budget.
There are capital projects. One was for the expo sign specifically, and that was for redoing the expo sign. So it was not an entranceway in the sense of pointing towards amenities. It was just for rehabilitating that site. And the other one, the other project, the 65,000, was for wayfinding.
Yeah, because the smaller signage internally was like a subcategorized, right, version of the highway ones, from memory when I seen it. Councilor Butler. And then
Councillor
Councilor
Tripp was
Tripp.
before me.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Through you to staff as well. The two signs that we have there on page 22, I'm just wondering, are those ones that that Multi would be considering? Or are they going to be asking us to come up with something completely different?
Or Deputy Manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these are two signs that were designed by Moti, and so these would be for the entranceway on another side of town.
Right, so,
Okay. Thank you.
That's due to the fact of the blue coloring, right? Because it's highways, right?
That's correct.
Councillor Butler and Councillor Hammond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, I was also curious about where we were at with the expo sign for this year. I think it's really important that we get on top of it and that it's attractive to people coming into town and that it doesn't get overgrown like it did last year. So I'm just wondering what plans staff have for this season.
Deputy Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the plan for the expo sign is to remove the vegetation, redo the letters in a metal that can be better maintained, and to have a black slag, probably a 5/8" slag as the base. So quotes have been obtained from a contractor and a permit application has been made to highways because it's within their right of way.
Councillor Hammond.
Great.
so these signs here, these are the ones I was talking about for the entranceway signs, but we've already approved the design that was presented to us last year, which was wooden signs, and they had panels that could slide in and out and be removed and changed.
Those are for street corners. right?
No, those were the great big ones that would go one above the expo sign. The only thing we hadn't decided was what we were gonna do under the under that big sign. But we had decided that was gonna be the location where one of the entranceway signs was gonna be located. And then we didn't know what we were gonna do and hadn't made a decision with what we were gonna do with the actual ground under the sign, where the expo is now. But the sign itself, we had concepts provided to us and they were
Yeah.
wide, quite a bit wider, and they were made of wood. And the panels slid in out and were interchangeable so that they could be changed as the amenities changed, or change with the season, because maybe in the wintertime we wouldn't need the camping one, but we might put another one. The Wayfarer signs downtown that we approved were posts with arrows, and they were different color coded that were pointing in different directions. And we had an open house here at City Hall. We had 3 different styles presented, and the public came in and voted on what they wanted. And so they narrowed it down, and there was a decision made on which design to go with. Those were the Wayfarer signs for the downtown ones. But this is a similar concept, but the one we had already seen and approved was wooden with interchangeable panels.
Your worship, I believe in this, Deputy Manager of Operations has something else. I believe that there was something that came to council last fall where there was some engineering problems for the size of the sign. And it was something that Moe couldn't approve.
Yeah.
And so this is Plan B.
Okay,
Because of the size of the sign and the weight and everything, there was some engineering pieces that they couldn't.
I was just gonna comment on that. Could it possibly be Modi that intervened on that one because of their criteria that they use for the highways? Because our signage did not compare to their model that they usually use on the highway. So we would only been the only community that would have had a different sign, and it's on their property. Am I right?
That's correct.
is this metal?
Yes. That's what I suspect. Okay, Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. So just a question, were we going to be required to vote on one of these signs, or are we just looking at the concept at this point? I think it was stated pretty clearly that the requirements that the multi needed precluded use of the existing wayfinding signage that we'd all come up with and thought was really good. But so now, is this pretty much what we're left with the needing to vote on? Or is this just a concept at this point?
Your
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the ministry would like the city to either engage them in the sign review or not, and they would take care of the designs. And as the bonus there being that they would also pay for the installation.
So we wouldn't really have a say in that then, in terms of the design?
there would be a minimal say. For example, we could have a black logo or a blue logo.
Pretty much that's,
So,
Prefer the
But-
black.
they would decide on the lettering and everything else.
yeah, because they're referring to municipal boundaries. So but probably not only our municipality comes in effect on this, it's a similar concept probably for other municipalities.
That's correct. The two things that they did customize for Grand Forks were the font of the Welcomes You, which
Oh,
is our cheap pine font.
Yeah.
And of course, our logo being on there.
Thank you.
So we voted tonight on which one we like best?
Councillor Butler?
Well, it's 15
I
years.
was just gonna say, according to our policy, we have to stick with black and white.
Councillor Hammond? Do you have
Yeah, just want to know if we're going to make a vote on
Yeah.
either the left or the
we have a
right.
choice between either of the two,
No, we
correct?
don't. I think we're engaging, we're authorizing you to engage with
Engagement.
Modi.
Mhm.
And assign review, so.
Certainly vote on either the black or the blue.
Yeah, exactly.
But the larger question is whether to do a sign review that would encompass all of the, for example, gallery signs, hotel signs, all of the amenity signs that you see right now on the highway. They would look at and make sure they were up to date and according to their current specifications, which have been updated since the last time they did a review in Grand Forks.
All right, Councillor Thompson?
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Call the question?
So all those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. So we're not going with the alternate, we're going with the main. All right, moving on to item 8B, solar new project budget. From our Deputy Manager of Operations Sustainability, recommendation to council approves a 2018 project budget of $65,000 for the Solar Now project at direct staff to include the project budget in the 2018-2022 financial plan bylaw. May I have a mover, please, Councillor Thompson, seconder, Councillor Tripp. Excuse me, discussion, Councillor Butler and Councillor Tripp.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm really glad that staff checked out this project. I remember when it came to council, it looked like an exciting opportunity, but I was hoping that the grant was actually going to cover more than what's being put forward here. When I asked staff in an email how long it would take to repay the investment based on the current rate of electricity and how much the panels generate, it's about 33 years. And panels don't even really last that long. And it's a neat idea. It shows that we're progressive and we want to get involved in solar, which a lot of communities have. The conference I just went to, New Westminster, was talking about a solar garden that they just put in, and I asked them the same question: what's the return on your investment? Is it viable? And it's not. I mean, these communities are doing these projects to look good and because it's a feel-good project, but it's still not financially viable to do these projects. Unfortunately, maybe in a couple of years, solar panels will become cheaper. But at this point, I really don't want to put another 40,000 on the budget for something that's more of a want than a need for the city. There's a few capital projects I'd still like to take off our budget and hopefully reduce the tax load on the residents. So I'm going to have to vote against this project. Unfortunately, I think it would be lovely to have this, but it's just, I wouldn't be willing to invest that type of money.
Councillor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Butler on that. We already had a 25,000 renewable energy project on the small capital projects list for the budget for this year. And that project was given a staff score of 15 out of 30. So it wasn't really considered a high priority project either by staff or by council. We gave direction to staff to accomplish 7 more high priority projects this year. So I just would question whether this project would really be important enough to consider at this time, as we do have so many other projects on the books. As Councillor Butler pointed out, there's really virtually no return on the investment. And so if we could see that there was a return coming through from what the solar panels were producing, or something even along those lines, I would be far more in favor of it than as it stands right now.
Dorsey,
Your worship, just so council could note, we're just asking to have this put onto the financial plan. It's not an additional funding. We already have the $40,000 in the carbon footprint, where we have to buy back our carbon points or whatever you call it. So we already have the 40,000, and the other piece is the part that is contributed by the Solar Now project. So it's not adding to the budget, it's already in there, so just so council is aware of that.
Councillor Hammond and Councillor Butler.
If we've already got the $40,000 budgeted for power, is there something else that we can look at? Perhaps we could buy a wind tree that would generate a little more power and be quite unique. I know when they first came out a year ago, they were about $75,000 US, but that was on the initial launch. I think something like that would be quite innovative and unique, and look a lot better. But I just don't think also that there's enough return on our investment for this. I'm just wondering if we could use that $40,000 along with the $25,000 grant to look at other options of power saving and money saving opportunities.
Dorsey,
I believe that with Mr. Swan and maybe the deputy manager of operations could elaborate a little bit better. I know that they did a bit of a inventory when he came through and looked at some different options, and I don't know how big the list was that came down. I know that it was drilled down to a few projects, so I don't know if there's anything more that you wanted to add to that.
So a few of the municipalities' buildings were evaluated for solar energy potential. The option in City Park came to the front of the list, both because of its visual prominence and its dual purpose. In the original design for the area between the lift station and the washrooms in City Park, there was supposed to be some sort of what they call a stage roof or a shelter, both from rain and sun. The design that's been looked at for that area with the solar panels would both install the solar panels and provide that stage roof.
Dual purpose.
So it's not just the energy generation potential, but it's also what else it accomplishes and the visual aesthetic of having it in the park.
what's the, let's see, I realize solar panels, there's minimal maintenance, but again, being an asset that we're acquiring, what's the maintenance factor on that above everything else here with the cost?
Panels themselves would only require maintenance if they were vandalized. They don't crack. They don't, if they're built correctly, they just are for about 25 years. And what happens with solar panels is they lose their efficiency. They don't outright fail. Okay. So you'll see in large solar farms in the States that were formed in the 70s and 80s, they'll trade out their panels because they're only 70% efficient, and in that commercial operation, that's not good enough. One of the questions that the program officer asked was about the snow maintenance that we do in City Park, in terms of adding to the accumulation of snow in another roof. Mm-hmm. Right now, we don't clear that area in the wintertime. It's not well used in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. So that wouldn't provide any additional maintenance. The structure itself being a steel frame or aluminum frame, it would have some minimal preventative maintenance in terms of making sure that the bolts were tightened or what have you, but it's a fairly durable and weatherproof structure. So there would be some, as these things have, but nothing with a price tag on it.
No. Councillor Tripp and Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Just back to the CAO. Just wondering, you had mentioned that there was already $40,000 in the budget. I'm just wondering where that shows up. It's not a capital, is it a capital item, project, or is somewhere else?
Your worship, I'm not the CFO, so I'm not quite sure exactly where
I'm
they've
sorry.
got
CEO.
placed. So, I know that they have it in an item and, that it's, I know they had talked about dark woods at one point in time, but it's not that, it's a carbon footprint, so it might be under care or something like that. Don't hold my toes to the fire, but it's something like that, and it accumulates like around $7,000 a year, so I think last year it was around 40, so there might be upwards of 47-ish this year. But I'm not quite, I couldn't tell you which fund it sits in. What
Okay.
box it's in.
Councillor Hammond, Councillor
Okay,
Thompson,
thank
then I'm
you.
gonna call the question.
So I like the idea of covering and making like a band shell type, because I think we really need something like that here, a covered area for entertainment. We go into a lot of small communities and they've got band shells in their parks or big gazebos where bands can play. So that aside, I can see that just that structure alone would absorb a lot of that $40,000. So is there, have you got a figure on what the solar portion, including the batteries, is of that? Because I think it would be a good idea, and it would be ideal since we're going to build a roof structure anyway, to put solar panels on there, with the bulk of the money being used to actually build the structure. And the second part of that question is the lift station and the washrooms. They're built of concrete and they actually look kind of ugly, I think. When we put that structure above it, is there no way that we can build a facade around it to make it look a little bit more character, like give it a bit more heritage character, maybe wooden framed or something, just as a facade to kind of tie it in to make it look like a band shell, or to make it look more of a
We're
historic.
deviating from our subject matter, Councillor Hammond.
Well, yeah, but it's part of the same project, so.
Not really, we're evaluating the cost on the budget regarding the solar. So, I have one quick question if I may, sorry, Councillor Thompson. In this costing for the solar project, what would be the usage of it? Because if there's a lift station, obviously it wouldn't have the capacity to run any of the electrical on the lift station because of high voltage, right?
We would run it into the grid, and
Okay.
so every bit of it would be used somewhere in the grid. That's the advantage of having a grid tie installation, is that you not only don't need batteries, but it does get used. It would essentially offset the power that we draw from Fortis's grid.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. So my question through you is the $40,000, if I heard correctly, is coming from what we already have to pay to reduce our carbon footprint? So that money is already there, it's not going to be, and it has to be used specifically for reducing our carbon footprint.
Yes, your worship, so that money there is intended for something that's going to be energy wise, like the, your green pieces and everything, so it fits very well into what the project entails.
All right. Excuse me, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion defeated, I'm opposing.
Oh, are you?
Moving on to 8C. Revision of policy 1603, risk management, city electrical outside works. Recommendation that council adopts the revised policy 1603, risk management, city electrical. Mover, please, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Hammond. Discussion, Councillor Butler. My apologies.
Some water?
Do you need to call a recess?
No, just get a
We're
rope.
gonna pass them.
Just get a rope.
Maybe that's work.
Just a quick question for staff. Under the scope of this policy, it says that it only applies to our distribution system. I'm just wondering if we start becoming a transmitter of power, is this policy going to come back for review again?
Certainly, if we change the scope of our system, I imagine it would be come back as well as some other policies to do with electrical.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Sorry. I had two notes on here. The other one, under policy statements, it says, safety is the direct responsibility of all managers, supervisors, and employees. And during our discussion back and forth with staff on emails and looking at the different WorkSafe BC regulations, I was wondering if we should also have in there that it's also the direct responsibility of the employer. Managers aren't the employer, council is the employer, supervisors and employees aren't the employers. So I think that the onus falls on the city as well to take responsibility for the safety. Anybody?
Yeah.
I can't, because I can't talk. Which might be a
Well,
good
I
thing.
can't.
Which might be a good thing.
Would that not be tacitly understood that the city, because if the city's providing and committed to providing, then council as the head of the city would be the employer? Or I think that's tacitly understood. I don't know if we have to really express that.
Our deputy manager, would you like to weigh in on this one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What the direct responsibility indicates is that the supervisors, employees, and managers will be checking for safety equipment for implementation of the more operational side of the safety. The piece that council creates is the policy in the sense of directing staff to be responsible.
Oh, I see what you mean by direct. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we don't get involved in the operational aspect of it, just oversee the policy part. Exactly. Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to 8D. Subject matter, cannabis legalization critical path. From engineering and development, the recommendation the council approves the bylaw introduction and amendment timeline as presented. Mover, please. Councilor Butler, seconder, Councilor Tripp. Discussion, Councilor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I just was wondering, I had a question on how the survey was going to be administered. Would that be items going out to people's homes or online media or in the paper? How that might be handled? Thank you.
Deputy Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The idea with a broad survey like this would be a mass advertisement. So we would use our online channels as well as the paper and however we could get the word out. The ideal in terms of receiving it back would be through an online survey, simply because that saves staff time in tabulating the results. However, we would also make available a paper copy of the survey for anyone who didn't have access to the internet or a computer to complete the survey. It would be advertised with a small caveat that if you are returning the survey, we would ask what street you live on, not necessarily your address, but just to make sure that we're hearing back from residents of the city as opposed to whomever decided to fill in the survey.
Good idea. If I could just ask one more question?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, and just through you, Mayor, to Kevin there. The public survey was scheduled for February and we've got 3 days left in the month. Would, is there something ready to go out basically into the paper by Wednesday? Or I know I've had a little bit of issue with the timeline here because it seems to be very putting you guys under a lot of pressure. So I'm just wondering how, if you're ready to go with that public survey and when you'd be expecting to get the information back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a draft survey right now. It would be initially advertised through electronic media with a follow-up in the paper. And we would expect results back in about 2 weeks. The reason why I feel comfortable with the shorter timeline is because if there's a limited time offer, people will respond right away when they have the opportunity instead of procrastinating. Whereas when there's a longer time frame, sometimes people forget to answer surveys.
Thank you. Okay, gonna call the question. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, we have no requests, correspondence. 10A, subject matter, Tap and Tapas and Wine Tasting 2018 Gallery 2. Recommendation is the council approves the issuing of a special occasion liquor license to Gallery 2 for their Tap and Tapas event on Friday, August the 17th, 2018, from 7 to 9:30 p.m. on the Gallery 2 grounds, subject to obtaining a third party, which is a party alcohol liability insurance, naming the city of Grand Forks as the additional insured on that policy. All event liquor providers to hold a serving at right license certificate and ICBC drinking and driving warning posters to be displayed. Mover, please. Councillor Butler, Councillor Hammond. Discussion, Councillor Thompson.
Is it intended to do two separate motions? One for the tap and tapas and one for the wine tasting? Okay, thank you.
Okay, unless there's any discussion, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Secondly, recommendation that council approves the issuing of a special occasion liquor license to Gallery 2 for their wine tasting event on Saturday, November 24th, 2018, from 8 to 10:30 p.m. at the Gallery 2, subject to obtaining a third party, party alcohol liability insurance, naming the city of Grand Forks as an additional insured on their policy. All event liquor providers to hold a serving at right license certificate and ICBC drinking and driving warning posters to be displayed. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Butler, Councillor Hammond. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. 10B, subject, request for use of city CRA number for grant toward heritage sign, Grand Forks Downtown Business Association. Recommendation is council approves the request from the Grand Forks Downtown Business Association regarding the permission for use of the city CRA number to apply for a grant towards the downtown heritage sign project. Have a mover, please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammond, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I fully support this program. I think it's going to be an excellent project for the downtown. So this says that it's applying for funding for the phase 2. I'm just wondering through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hammett, how the phase 1 of the project was going. I thought it was almost ready to go forward, but I just haven't heard in a while.
That's right.
It's gone exceptionally well. When we first did the survey amongst the members as to how many we could anticipate participating, we had approximately 40. So we budgeted for 40 and quoted based on that amount. We went around and got waivers signed to affix the signs to the buildings and collect payment, and we're now over 60. So we've applied to the credit union for additional funding to complete the balance of those signs, and also for phase 2, which is the walking tour brochures. So we'd like to see those out amongst the merchants and in the visitor information center by summer if possible. So
are the signs going up in the summer?
the signs are already in the works now. The archives are providing the photos and the history, and Alpine Signs has been contracted to do the signs. The wood is all purchased. We have the wrought iron hanging. We've got 2 different signs in the works. We've got wooden horizontal signs that all hang above the sidewalks as you walk down the street. So you'll be able to see at a distance what stores are there. They're cedar, and they're like a 3D. They're all the same font, but there'll be black lettering that stands out on the wood because it'll be sandblasted, and they'll be mounted with black wrought iron ornate hangers that'll be affixed to the building. And then there's the 22 by 36 inch signs that have the photo and the history that will be affixed directly to the wall of the buildings. So it's kind of taken off, and we're looking at, this is closer to a $25,000 project.
Mhm.
And the grant that we received for the Canada 150 Heritage was 10,000. So we're looking for additional funding to complete the project and the brochures.
So you're just going to the credit union for that funding, or are you applying for another?
They'll forward it onto the Phoenix Foundation if it's something that they can. So
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right, moving on to 11A, bylaws. It's the subject matter is the RDKB amendment bylaw number 1663 in regards to transit service, corporate services. Recommendation is council consents to the Regional District of Kootenai Boundary Board of Directors adopting bylaw 1663, being the Regional District of Kootenai Boundary, Grand Forks and District Transit Service Local Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 1663, 2018. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Butler. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. All right, we have no late items. So we move on to questions from the public and the media. Again, please stay on subject matter should you wish to discuss anything. All right, the floor is open. Hearing none. Oh, gentleman in the back.
Just two little things. I was really busy in the beginning trying to get things live, so I didn't get
With all due respect,
Les Johnson, GFTV, taxpayer. Yeah, I missed a certain amount of that discussion at the very beginning about the reports. And I'm just curious, what feedback mechanism does a business not in the chamber or the DBA have to bring their concerns and suggestions to council?
pardon me, I didn't hear that.
If you're a business in this town and you're not in the DBA and you're not in the chamber, then what mechanism do you have to bring your suggestions and concerns to council?
Well, there's liaisons.
There's liaisons, I would say, and you also have a business license, so you could address your concerns to staff at the business license level. Should it be something on a, let's say, elected official level, then sure, bring it to council, but unless it's nothing to do with any form of governance.
So just the same mechanism like a letter that ends up in information items and stuff like that?
Not necessarily, I mean, the concerns can be addressed to the business license department
Mhm.
at staff, am I right?
If it pertains to that particular
Yeah.
function.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. The other one was on the solar panels on the band shell. I get the thinking there, this band shell, where would you put them? I mean, you know, the panels have to face the sun. If you put them on the roof side, they'll never face the sun. Even if you put them on the front, there's trees.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that a lot. You probably want to find a different place to put them on.
I just like the bench shell.
One of your pop houses or something like that. Anyways, that was it.
That was my reasoning why I voted against it, sir. Because the logistics of it did not prevail in that area. Councillor Hammond.
Can I just on the solar panels, I just have a question because when we discussed it before, I thought we were planning on putting them on the library. Wasn't that what our initial discussion had been?
Well, that
That
didn't
was-
happen tonight. All right, any other comments from the gallery, media? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Butler, all those in favor? This meeting is adjourned.
Wait a minute.
No records, but